I am called James the Obscure, but I'm not here to tell you that story tonight. Lady Mary was young, and Lady Mary was beautiful. And she had 2 brothers and a father who was rich, for he had land. And she had more suitors than she cared to name, but never a one gave she a tumble, till Mr. Fox rode into her life. Now he was a grand gentleman, was Mr. Fox. He had been to the wars, and he was brave. And he was rich, for he bought the old stone castle. All knew of it. There it sat on the hill, and it had an evil countenance about it, too. And there were many the story that were strange that were told of the tales that went on there. But Mr. Fox, he opened the doors and opened the portals and swept out the shadows and let in the light. Now, Lady Mary, and she always was a bold one, she determined that she would meet the Mr. Fox, and their talk led to talk, led to talk, led to talk of marriage. And soon it was determined between them that, and agreed that they would be wed, and the date was set. Now, in that time and with those people, the marriage would not go on unless there was a signing of the marriage contract. And that would be done at a mid-morning feast. All the notables would be there of the town, for her father was rich and it was expected. And he was a man who liked to see things done right. "Oh," said Mr. Fox, "the banquet can go on in 4 days' time. I must be off on business for 3 days. And Lady Mary determined on the day that he was to go on business, she would go to his grand castle. And she would go through every room there, for she would be mistress of this great hall. And strange to tell, Mr. Fox had never invited Lady Mary or her brothers or her father to visit his own great hall. And when asked about it, she said, "Oh, that's just Mr. Fox." But all the same, she wondered. Now, on the day when Mr. Fox was gone, off went Lady Mary. And she came across the bridge and saw there carved in wood above the bridge the words, "Be bold, be bold." And Lady Mary smiled, for she always was a bold one. She went up the stairs to the entranceway and knocked with the great brass knocker and stepped back while she waited and read above the doorway carved in wood, be bold, but not too bold." And Lady Mary smiled at this. None came to answer her door. So she reached her hand out, opened the door and went in. Saw there crates that were moved in or moved out to be moved out. Up the entrance stairs she went, and down the main hall, going through every room and looking. And when she came back, there at the head of the stairs, around the corner in the shadows, she found a dark and winding staircase. Up she went, and at the head of that staircase, there was a room. And carved in stone above the door, be bold, but not too bold, lest your heart's blood run cold." And Lady Mary did not smile at this. She opened the door and stepped inside and heard the door close behind her. Then she saw on the floor a great dark stain, and on the walls there were bodies hanging, and all of young women. And she remembered the door going closed behind her, and reached her hand out and felt the door come open again. Down the stairs she went, and when she came near the bottom, she looked through an opening in the portal, and there she saw coming up the walk Mr. Fox, and he was not alone. He was pulling by the wrist a young woman, and she pleading and moaning, and Lady Mary looked around and hid herself behind the crates and saw them come in. The poor woman was moaning and crying, but Mr. Fox pulled her up the stairs, and her hand went out and held on to the banister. I'd almost forgotten the ring, for there was a gleaming ring on that finger. But it would not come off to the tug, and he wanted it. Well, you'll not be needing that hand more. And he out with his great knife and cleaved the hand at the wrist. It flew through the air and landed in the lap of Lady Mary. Where went that ring? I would have it, you know. That. The hand will not be going far, I'll warrant. And up the dark and winding stairs he took that poor young woman, and Lady Mary could only watch. She went home, changed her gown, and kept her own counsel. Now came the midday feast and the signing of the marriage contract. All of the notables from the town and thereabouts were all there. There was her father and her two brothers, and there was Lady Mary and Mr. Fox in places of high honor upon the high dais. Why, Lady Mary, how pale and wan ye look this day. Oh, Mr. Fox, I've had bad dreams. Oh, Lady Mary, tell us of your dreams, and thy sweet voice will while away the hours until the happy meeting of our marriage. Oh, Mr. Fox, in my dreams, I dreamt that I went to your grand hall, and I went through every room, and I found in the shadows a dark and winding staircase, and I went up. Why, Lady Mary, everyone knows that dreams go by contraries. 'Twas only a dream. It was not so. And Mr. Fox, in my dream, I dreamt that I went in the room at the top of the dark and winding stairs, and there I saw bodies hanging upon the walls, and all of women. Lady Mary, everyone knows dreams go by contraries. 'Twas only a dream. It was not so, nor is it not so. And Mr. Fox, in my dreams, I dreamt that I did go down the stairs, and I saw you bring in a poor young woman, and for the sake of the ring on her hand, you cut off her hand at the wrist. Lady Mary, everyone knows that dreams go by contraries. It was not so, nor is it not so, and God forbid it should be so. Well, it was so, and it is so, and here is the hand and the ring to show. And Mr. Fox started up, but her brothers were faster and had him and bound him. And they took the Mr. Fox to his own grand castle, and up the dark and winding stairs they went with him, and found there that it was so, and it is so. And they bound him and put him in a corner so he could not move, but only watch. And they took out the bodies for proper burial. Now Lady Mary was the last to leave the room, and before the door went closed on Mr. Fox, he saw a woman's hand reach a second woman's hand out with the ring still upon the finger, and place it in his lap to think upon. For Lady Mary always was a bold one. And then Lady Mary closed the door on him forever.